Hi, I'm Mike from 1A Auto. We've been selling auto parts for over 30 years.
Hi everyone, Sue here at 1A Auto, and today we're going to show you on our 03 Volvo V70 how to do a front strut assembly. If you need this part for your car or any other part, click on the link below and head on over to 1aauto.com. And as usual, don't forget to always get an alignment done anytime after any suspension or steering repairs have been done. First thing we're going to do is remove the tire. I have weight on the tire of the vehicle still, so I can break the lug nuts free, and this is a 19 millimeter. I'm just going to break them free, then raise the vehicle up. Now that the car is up in the air, I can remove the lug studs. This is what a European car does. There's not lug nuts because there's no studs on the hub, so it's a whole post. So when you get to your last one, you better have both hands ready to grab the tire. So I don't, this one's frozen on there, but normally the wheel will fall right off. So just keep one of the lug studs partially threaded in, and you break it free. First thing I'm going to do is spray everything down. It is an 03 and it's New England, so we're just going to hope that this helps with the removal. Let that settle in for a little bit. So the sway bar link is an 18 millimeter, and more than likely it's going to spin and in place. So the Torx piece in the middle here is a T40, so we're going to have to hold that. So I'm going to be going opposite on both ways. I'm going to pry up on the nut to break it free and hopefully hold it still with my ratchet. You can take that sway bar link nut right off and push the link right out. At this point, before I remove this strut, I'm going to support the lower control arm with just a jack stand. Obviously my car is on a 2-post lift, so this is not being used to support the car. I just want to stop this control arm from dropping down and doing any damage to the CV shaft axle. It can pull itself right out of the joint, not out of the transmission, but the joint can separate from the weight of this knuckle being dropped down. So we're just going to support it with a jack stand. And on the European car, it's kind of difficult. So you just got to really get a good spot here because that's too much of a tilt. So I'm going to hopefully locate it between the knuckle and the their brake. There we go. So I'm going to lower my car down slowly until it supports it. Good. So now with my control arm supported with my jack stand, I'm going to remove the bolts for the strut assembly to the knuckle. And the nut is a 21 millimeter and the front is an 18 millimeter. So now I can put my 21 on there and break this nut free. And then this bolt will start spinning, so I'll put my wrench on there. I like to make sure that you really examine the mounting bolts on any strut assembly because some of them are different diameters, so you got to make sure you put it back in the top. And some of them have a slot on it for a camber adjustment. So I'm going to put that with the nut and locate it so I know that's the top. Now I'm going to remove the bottom one, same size, 21 millimeter nut and 18 millimeter bolt head. I'm going to leave that nut on there just enough so that I can push that out. I might have to take a hammer or I can use that. So we got to make sure we remember to disconnect our ABS sensor from the strut. We don't want the weight of that ripping it. So I'm just going to pull that right out of there. So now with the bolt, it's just in there. I'm just going to take a brass punch so I don't damage the bolt, and I'm going to tap that out. So because I'm not taking the caliper off to do a brake job or anything, and the strut's coming out anyways, I'm just going to pivot with my pry bar and see if I can get this bolt out. And there it is. Now that we have the bottom of the strut disconnected from the knuckle, it's still in the knuckle. I'm going to disconnect the top strut mount bolts. There's 3 of them. Do not touch the center nut. That is the compression for the spring on the strut. We're not going to even touch that because we're putting a whole assembly in. So 13mm socket, and I'm going to loosen up the mount bolts. Just take all 3 right out. Once all 3 nuts on the top are done, now the strut can fall right out. So we're going to take it off the knuckle, and by that I'm just going to take a little pry bar, pry it off of the actual knuckle. Here we go. Now we can let it drop down till the top tower is exposed. And then weasel it up to the fender. Here we have our new strut assembly from 1A Auto. And here I have the one I just took out of my 03 Volvo. It has been replaced, but it also has a tag on it that says Volvo right here. So this is the one that the manufacturer from Volvo actually will put in, and they're identical. I can't find any change. The new one comes with new mounting lock nuts for the top. They both have the mounting for the sway bar links and the mounting for the ABS wiring harness sensor and the 2 knuckle mounting holes. Comes with its own damper booting, new. It's an amazing, nice rubber base. If you need this part, any other part for your car, click on the link below and head on over to 1aauto.com. Before I install the strut assembly up inside, I'm going to take the new mounting nuts off and put them up here where I can reach them. Make sure I line up my mounting plate the way it's going to be up in here, so there's no downtime. There you go. So I've got the 2 straight studs right here and the off-centered one. So those 2 are on the fender line. The off-centered one's on the inner engine. So now I'm going to pick it up. I'm going to work it through. So it's going to go in first, down this way. Clear it from everything. Get it in the fender. Now I'm going to turn that base plate back around and then lift it up. Now when the studs pop through, you keep one hand down there, holding it up, and start the 3 mounting nuts. And you can let go. So now I'm going to grab the lower bolt. I'm going to put that in first, hopefully be able to bypass this caliper a little bit easier. So you got to line it up. You're going to have to push down on that control arm and up on the strut base quite a bit. we go. Let's get the top one in. Put that nut on. Now I can just take my hammer and see if I can tap this in. I see it needs to go down just a hair. There we go. So I took my pry bar and I put it between the aluminum knuckle and the strut housing, right by the bolt housing. And I pried, it was just twisted enough. And I could put enough pressure on it, and one tap and it went right in with the hammer. Now I'm gonna put this in the bracket, the ABS wire, because I don't want to forget that. All right. Now when I'm tightening a strut, because it's got to get lined up anytime you take a strut out. So whenever I'm tightening one up, I like to put the camber, even though it's not slotted, there's still some movement to it, and I'm going to tighten both of these when it comes to tightening them with that pushed in all the way. So I want it, so if this is the front angle of the rotor, I want that knuckle pushed in all the way this way, not left like that. So just like that. That's how I'm going to tighten this down. You can see quite a bit of a gap here. It's going to take to pinch this metal to at least hold it there. There you go. It's not going to move now. So now I can raise my vehicle up and torque those down. And then tighten that once. I'm going to tighten these once the tire is back on and it's lowered on the ground, because I want to make sure all pressure is up on that housing. Now that this is bolted, I can remove the jack stand before I raise it up. Just going to snug down both strut bolts and nuts. So now we're going to tighten and torque down the strut to the knuckle mounting bolts. It is 77 foot-pounds and then an additional 90 degrees. So it's 21 millimeter socket on the nut side. And I got this set for 77 foot-pounds. Shouldn't have to hold that, but we'll see. That's 77. We'll do the bottom. Now I'm going to set my gauge for additional 90 degrees. So now with my torque wrench set for 90 degrees, and we'll do the bottom. Now we're ready to reinstall our front sway bar link. I'm just going to use the wrench until the center bolt stud starts to spin. And there is, like I said, no torque specs that I could find. So I'm truly just going to tighten that right down. Now before I install my wheel on my European car, I'm going to use the wheel stud pin set that 1A Auto supplies. It comes with two sets, a 12 by 1.5 or 14 by 1.25. In this case, our Volvo is a 14 by 1.25. And I'm just going to put two of them in there. I'm not going to use all four. And that way, when I pull the tire up, it has something to rest on. And anyone that's ever worked on a European car knows the frustration of trying to hold the wheel up and thread in a lug stud. So the neat thing about this is how it works. I just need to line up two of those studs. Now I can just walk away. That's the great part, get my lug nuts, studs I mean, and I can just take my time threading them in by hand. And it's not gonna fall off. So now that I've got 3 of the lug studs in there, I'm just gonna tighten down, hand tighten 2 of them so that the wheel is flat against the hub. Now I can remove my helping guide pins. I can just back those out. I think it's a must for your toolbox. These things are crazy awesome, and it stops any frustrations. Now that I have them all hand tight, I can lower the vehicle down, put some slight weight on them, and torque them. So now you saw, I put the wheel on and I lowered the vehicle, so now I have the weight of the vehicle truly sitting in the strut. So now I'm ready to get my 13mm socket, and I'm going to tighten these down and torque them to the spec. So now I'm down to the last one. I'm just snugging them up, and then I'm going to torque them to the factory spec, which is 18 foot-pounds. I've already set my torque wrench up. I like to double check on everything. Perfect. So now I'm going to torque the wheel. I've got the weight of the vehicle on the tire, and the torque for this Volvo is 103 foot-pounds. And like usual, I'm going to do everything in a star pattern. Okay, let's double check. Now that the repairs are done on the driver's side, repeat the process on the passenger side.
Thanks for watching. Visit us at 1AAuto.com for quality auto parts, fast and free shipping, and the best customer service in the industry.